So before we kick this off, I just want to do a really quick intro to our great speakers today. And in terms of, we have a number of Uni Connect speaking. We also have Kingsbury School. We are in early stages of delivery. And when I say early, some of these Uni Connects have been up and running a couple of weeks. Others have yet to deliver, one in particular. And then Aspire Higher have yet to get the product delivered to them. This is how hot off the press this is. So just to keep that in mind in terms of the feedback that's coming in from them, and also their presentations today. I want to thank Stoke-on-Trent for being the leaders in innovation, for taking this on first. Ant always laughs when I say that, but they are the first off the bat as well with this. And just to quickly add, I suppose my own background, for those who don't know me, I've lectured in criminal justice and created education programs in Ireland for young offenders, those that were at risk of NEET and those that were NEET as well. And in terms of empowering young people, particularly those from disadvantaged area, to look at education as something that's very valuable, when at times they might not have that support at home to make that decision, there's not a shadow of the doubt that these Uni Connects are so invaluable in terms of what they can bring to schools and colleges. So over to you, Ant. I'll let you kick off in terms of the presentation.
Thanks very much, Aoife. Are you gonna click my slides for me, Aoife?
I'll do that for you, Ant. No hassle.
That's very good. It makes me feel like Chris Whitty on a Prime Minister briefing. I'll give you the nod. So hello everybody. I'm Ant Sutcliffe, head of High Horizons, which is Uni Connect partnership in the North Midlands, which I'll briefly talk about now. On the first slide, please, Aoife. So very quickly, who we are, for those of you that don't know, we're a Uni Connect partnership funded by the Office for Students. We've got 10 partner HEIs, 4 funded partner HEIs, universities in Keele, Chester, Harper Adams and Staffordshire University in Stoke. We've got 33 members of staff across 5 different offices. We cover 57 quintile 1 postcode wards, so we work with young people from quintile 1 postcode wards across the 3 counties of Staffordshire, Shropshire and Cheshire. We work with 129 schools, and we've delivered over 2,500 activities since we've been active, over 100,000 engagements, and we've got some lovely data recently from UCAS Strobe that supports the fact and evidences the fact that if a young person engages in our programme for one of these wards, we know that over half of them enrol at university, which is against their like-for-like peers, only 18% go on. But that's enough blowing our own trumpet. I'm here today to talk about what we've done with the pay index. So next slide, please. So why TPI? I haven't got long, so I'm going to sort of read off this slide, but there's lots and lots of reasons why we started to work with TPI. We actually started to work with the pay index pre-COVID, and then we accelerated it when the world changed and everything became more virtual. But the reasons why we decided to go for it, one, and some of these I don't necessarily agree with, but they are the facts of life in the space that we work at the moment. So one of the reasons is that young people that we work with now, one of the questions we get asked a lot is, what's the value for money? I'm spending this money and getting myself 56 grand's worth of debt, what job am I going to get at the end of it? Now, of course, we talk about the benefit of education for the sake of for getting an education, health benefit, but it is a fact of life that they want to know what's in it for them. We also can use the tool to combat some parental and some teachers' attitudes that we sometimes do, that university is a waste of money. We're going to go to university, they'll still end up stacking shelves or whatever it may be. But sadly, as well, we're using it currently to combat certain politicians. You may have heard certain ministers talk around Mickey Mouse degrees, and universities need to stop promising the earth and delivering very little. Not only do we think that's nonsense, with the pay index, we've got evidence that suggests that it's nonsense. And also this sort of rhetoric coming from government that we see at the moment, maybe sort of the only valuable degrees are degrees that people like us did, and I studied Cambridge Classics at Oxbridge or wherever it may be, and they're the courses that get you a good job. and a good career. Of course they do. It's one of the best universities in the world, but probably more to do with them being exceptionally well networked and connected. And in the modern day world, particularly post-COVID, for the young people we work with in Stoke-on-Trent and Crewe, Winsford and Cannock, would a degree in game design and esports actually deliver a better career going to Staffs Uni or Derby or post-92? Well, not only do we think so, we've got some evidence that suggests now from the pay index that yes, it does. And then I'll quickly go through these points, but in the COVID and post-COVID world, employment in the world of work, it doesn't need me to tell anybody, is going to rapidly change and be fluid. So it's important to get real live data fast, quickly and accurately that we can talk to the young people about. It's regionalised, it's live, it packs a punch, it challenges the conceptions I've spoken about, but most importantly for the kids that use it, it's engaging and easy to use. Next slide, please. So what have we done with the pay index? Well, first of all, we've got a core program that was developed over the long hot spring and summer of 2020, which is a program that can either be delivered by our staff face-to-face, virtually, or it's got a click and play function, so teachers can just click it, and they'll have one of our guys using Bandicam in the corner, pre-recorded, talking through 6 hours of information, advice and guidance. One of those sessions is based around careers and employability, and the focus for that session is the pay index. So that is being embedded in the core program and is being delivered in schools at the moment. We also offer the sessions out for our staff to go in or zoom in, and I'm going to spend the last part of this talk showing you one of the sessions. I think it's more valuable than us going on about necessarily how we've gone about setting up the system. We've also done a social media push. It's free to access and browse for teachers and young people. We're starting to get some young people sign up for it now that they can just look at it at their leisure. We've created a national content creation national group. So what's this has meant is other UniConnect partners with our staff have been able to create sessions that we all share. And there's an additional resources page on the platform that all these sessions sit on. So the young people or the teachers can go in and see the sessions for what they are, make it a bit more of a sustained engagement. That also means that sessions are new and fresh. So we had a couple from Greater Manchester yesterday. I think I've seen Ian's face somewhere. So for that, they can go up and go live, and everybody around England can use them. And as I said, it can be delivered by our staff either virtually or face to face if and when we can get back into schools, or when I should say now, vaccine pending. It can be delivered by teachers, or it can be self-led at home or in school by the young person. I'm not going to bore you about the evaluation, but we've got different layers of evaluation that we will use to make sure that we're capturing as much information as we can to keep them happy. Next slide, please, Aoife. Right, so what I'm going to do, I think is most useful. I've lost track of time. I'll spend 5 minutes running through what we think is one of the better sessions that our team have created that uses the pay index, and it's called Future Selves. So first slide, please. So what we do, basically, we'll set the session up with a group of young people, either virtually or in the classroom, and we'll say that by the end of the session, we'll develop a fictional character. You will have created a path for their future and their lives, and you will have written a letter from that character to their younger self. And in doing so, to enable you to do that, you'll be using this really good functioning, quite cool and fresh tool called the pay index. Next slide, please. So what we begin by doing, my power's just popped out. I don't know. So what we start the session off by asking them to develop a fictional character. What sort of jobs would you like? What sort of university are they thinking about? Are they thinking about going to university? What do they enjoy doing? What are their habits? What are their hopes and dreams? What do they like doing? Where are they from? Do they want to stay in the area? Do they want to move away? Are they from the countryside and desperately want to go live in London, or vice versa? And we have a few facts coming up throughout the session as well. Next slide. And then we go into real development of the character. We ask them to spend a little bit of time thinking about this. So how old is your character? What's the gender? Where did they grow up? What do they look like? What's the hairstyle? What hobbies have they got? What clothes do they wear? Do they have lots of friends, or do they not have? Do they prefer to sit in the room and play computer games or whatever it may be? What are the hobbies? What do they just do in the spare time? So we start to get the young people to really try and think about what this character is like, and we think the clever part comes in a moment. Next slide, please, Aoife. Which is, we ask them to put themselves in the shoes. What we often find, we do this session not just through the pay index, but what we often find is with the young people, as they start writing about themselves, or they start writing or imagining a more positive version of themselves, or what we say, reimagining what they are or what they could be. So at this point of the session, I think we start, they may or may not, but we start to realise that actually they're starting to talk about themselves. But there is not the nervousness, because we've not said to them, you go and plan your own futures. They're a little bit, they're almost one step aside from talking about themselves, but naturally they probably are. So we tell them to imagine that they are in this person's shoes, and you can tell this, you can read there, which I won't go through the sort of things that we ask them to think about. Next slide. And then, of course, we tell them to log on and start exploring the pay index. So typically, if this was in a school, in the normal world, we would try and book a computer lab, so they'd have a computer each. In Bubbles, it's proving difficult at the moment, so we may ask the teachers to get 5, 6, 7 laptops or iPads, so they can gather around and pass it around whilst they're doing the other work. And they'll start to really investigate all the rich data and pathways that John's spoken about in that first session there. Next slide, Aoife, please. And the important and last part, and this is my last slide, I believe, is ask them to write a letter. And I think, again, coming back to focus on, we ask them to write a letter from the character, by the character, to their present self, but maybe in 10 or 15 years' time. What we often find when we do this is that the young people are actually writing the letter to themselves, whether consciously or subconsciously, they are thinking about themselves and their own future. So some of these letters may be what you can see on the screen, but it may be, you may be nervous, but don't worry. You will successfully go to your local sixth form and you'll get 3 A-levels. You'll get a couple of C's and a D, but don't worry, you'll get in to Keele University and you'll study politics. And it might be an uncomfortable first semester, but once you get going, you're going to have the best time of your life. You'll then go and get a job working in an outreach team, and you will work your way up. And one day you might be head of a UniConnect partnership called High Horizons. That's my personal, because I'm not very inventive and I can't think of anybody else's route. And then they can keep the letter. We'll give them the login, and the hope is that they will have clearly enjoyed the session, taken something from it, reimagined their future a little bit without it being awkward, and us saying to them, plan your own future using this tool, off you go. It's a little bit more inventive and innovative than that, we hope. And then we hope that they will not only stay in touch with us via the pay index, via the Access platform, which is our sort of mentoring system, but they will, linked to that, they will also have a page where they can dip in and out of the pay index platform and use it in the future. All that is clearly logged, and we do the evaluation and have a look and constantly try and improve, of course. So that was me. I hope that was useful.
That's great. And we're going to hear from Hop next. And then, if you don't mind, we'll just have a few questions. Then at that stage, we'll pause for questions. So we'll kick things off now with Naomi and Fiona.
Thanks, Aoife. Right, I'll start. So my name's Naomi Prendergast, and I am the head of the Humber Outreach Programme, or HOP for short. So it's really good to see you all here this afternoon. So who are we? As I said, we're the Humber Outreach Programme. We're one of the 29 UniConnects dotted around the country, and we're based in the Yorkshire and Humber region. So we've recently made headlines for all the wrong reasons because of COVID, but we cover 4 local authorities, of which we have the City of Hull, the East Riding of Yorkshire, North Lincs, and North East Lincolnshire. We're based at the University of Hull. They're our host institution, and we have a central team of about 16 members. We also fund offices across our greater FE colleges as well. We work with 75 schools and colleges in all. There's about 35,000 year 9s to year 13 students across the 4 local authorities, of which 14,000 of those are our target students. We have 6 GFE colleges, a range of 6th form partners as well, and we have a really robust governance board where we have the Humber LEP, the Careers Enterprise Company, our local authorities and schools, and our higher education providers. So that's basically who we are. Next slide, Eva. Okay, so why the pay index? And I sort of sat and thought, okay, why the pay index? Well, one, I took a phone call from Aoife over the summer in my kitchen when I was trying to get my little boy some lunch, and she just sounded so positive that, you know, it was one of the rare moments that I said, yes, please send me your information and we'll put something in the diary. So I'm really, really glad I did that. But the reason why we're working with the pay index is before COVID, UniConnect Partnerships had been tasked with developing a hub, which basically meant, because we'd done so well over 3 years with our targeted work, our funders, the Office for Students, wanted us to expand our offer, to look at how we could reach more young people, how we could service all our schools and all our institutional providers, and create a place where young people, parents, teachers could go and find resources, could access information, where we could signpost young people and teachers and the like to opportunities, whether that was outreach activities at universities or our colleges, or what was happening locally. So we were already busy and being tasked with that exercise of developing this hub. What we thought we had was 2 years to do this. But with COVID, this has been a real game changer. And as you said at the beginning, Aoife, it sort of like threw us all, you know, initially when we were all sent packing in March from our host institutions, it threw us into a real dilemma of, okay, we know we need to develop resources that reach out virtually to young people, but we're all at home. And some of us had limited IT skills. Yeah, it was all very, very new to us. But what it did do is accelerate our mission of developing activities and resources that supported everybody. And this is where the pay index has played a major role for those UniConnects who've worked with them over the summer. People have heard me say this so often, but lockdown and having to work and learn online has been thrust on us all. And it's been thrust on schools and young people and mature learners. And it's really exposed the fact that having to digest information, having to work remotely to work through worksheets or PDFs or any work online is really, really difficult to do. It's hard enough for me to do that, but what it has exposed is that it's further disadvantaged our young people, particularly those young people who already are vulnerable, who already come with lots and lots of barriers and lots of things that get in the way of future decision making. So it's created what I class as apathetic learning, which has really, really worried me. And for me, this is why the pay index has been a real pleasure to work with and work on developing the product, because it's looking at overcoming that passive learning problem. And how we're using it. Okay, so we know it's a really intuitive product. We know it's clever, we know it's innovative, but for me it feeds into that wider career strategy that as a program we are rolling out and working with our schools and learners to make sure they have access to. And because it's so flexible, and because it's not just about traditional pathways, it's looking at apprenticeships. There is scope here for technical qualifications for those non-traditional routes. It it gives us something to build upon. So what we're really excited about is it fits within a wider career strategy of building on reflective activities, building on guidance, building on one-to-ones, whether that's direct or, as Ant says, using our online chat functions. It's being used in pastoral sessions in schools, as well as sessions that we deliver in schools. And for me, it's not just a throwaway activity, because there's so many, yeah, I know Ant probably has been bombarded like I have with products on the market where when you actually dive into them, it looks good, it's a passing moment. And I think this is really important to say, that this isn't a throwaway activity. I like, you know, the fact that we've invested in all these products is because it breaches the gap between traditional and non-traditional pathways like apprenticeships. And that's something as Uni Connect that we're really being encouraged to do by our funders. You know, they're very clear that Uni Connect is no longer just about traditional HE pathways, but it's also exploring all those non-traditional routes, tertiary routes, apprenticeships. And so this is really exciting that we're able to have a compare and contrast and considered product. And the fact that it explores the where, the what, the how, to me is really pivotal, as it critically starts the dialogue off for young people in terms of what's in it for me. And Ant's already touched on this, but often with programs, people say, what are your aims and objectives? And we say, well, we want to create ambition. We want young people to aspire. Young people have aspirations, young people have ambitions, but they don't see themselves accessing that ambition. They don't see the realities of life offering up those opportunities for them. So it really is about getting them to look at what they can expect out of life. And hopefully that builds ambition, because young people can often write themselves off. And that's what we particularly find as Uni Connect partnerships. So for me, this creates that accessibility to challenge their expectations for themselves. It's a product that grows with them. You know, it's like I say, it's not just that one-off. And the success of the Pay Index is that it clearly is clever and engaging and a useful tool, and something that everyone can have access to. But it's the reason why students will use it is because it connects the dots. So from initial exploration and inquiries that young people naturally have at the beginning of their thinking and their journey, it's moving them to a mindset of projecting into the future. And it's really interesting that Ant used that example of future selves. Great minds, Ant, but it's that projection and that future and that really tackling that expectation. And it's creating some realism as well, because young people aren't silly, you know, they're not stupid, and this is why it really helps to break down that barrier and have those additional resources and support around this product. And for me, it gets them to expect something out of life for themselves. Next slide.
Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, I'm Fiona Berry. I'm the Hub Officer at HOP. So as Naomi alluded to, the Hub is a critical part of our Uni Connect HOP package. So the TPI has really been a lifesaver and probably kept me in a job. So thank you. But yeah, just on a practical level, just to give you sort of an outline of the timeline of delivery. You know, we were probably about 8 weeks from initial discussions to launch, which was a week ago. Yes, a week ago today. So it was a huge day for us in HOP, because we'd got a massive other digital package that we were launching online, like a new prospectus as well. And we've actually taken 2 out of the 3 products at HOP. So we've got My Future University and My Future Apprenticeship. So we you know, we've got that double whammy there. What I'm always mindful of is John's expression and talking about the ecosystem. And it's that idea of organic, and it's evolving, and we can always adapt it, and we can add new resources, work with the national group. But also we've got key markers on our strategy going forward, from the launch last week to a joint project with the Humber LEP and the CEC. We've got a virtual careers fair, working with the local authorities, and HOP have got an opportunity to really promote the pay index there, which is really exciting. We've then got a week-long event in February. We'll coincide the My Future Apprenticeship with lots of activities around National Apprenticeship Week next year, and also with National Careers Week. So it's that idea of it's always fresh, it's always live, it's always current. Next slide, please. And just really to echo what Ant said with Higher Horizons, very similar model of delivery, because we're so limited in our face-to-face access in schools under the current climate. We have got it as part fully integrated in our school and college delivery plans, but how it is delivered has obviously had to be adapted. So it can be teacher-led or remote, it can be HOP outreach coordinator led in classroom or remotely. And the one amazing thing is, I know we've had a discussion about it, John and Nana and I, but it actually does look its optimum on a mobile. I mean, it's absolutely amazing on a laptop or an iPad, but for, you imagine those students with their phones and the way they can access it. So we are looking at that blended delivery. Sorry, that was my timer going off, so we're nearly there. And also, well done, that's all right. Yes. And the brilliant thing about the pay index is to stimulate those discussions about future pathways with parents and carers. Next slide.
Okay, right. So just to finish off, like we say, we're a week old, but in that week, within the first few days, we did have our first student from a Hull postcode who completed the report. So we were absolutely delighted about that.
Naomi, I'll say you got 7 more this afternoon.
Oh my gosh! I did double check it wasn't the team at the team meeting. I said, I'm really cross if it's you lot who were running the reports, because we were super excited. But we do see this as actually providing some really key evaluation for us, quantitative data around the analytics behind the product and using QR code data. But we're going to do quite a lot of work around focus groups and learner voice, and really drill into that qualitative opportunity to see what's influencing young people, how COVID has impacted. Is this making a difference? Is it actually raising questions that we need to go away and answer? So it's sort of like part of your commissioning cycle and your continuous improvement, really. And the other bit I'm really excited about is working with our local LEP and our Education Skills Board. There are plans to collaborate with this product to make sure it's a total approach to providing support on all pathways, whether you're a young person or you're a mature learner. And I think there's some real innovation behind that agenda as well. So that's something I'm really keen to do. And also bringing the technical and the Institute of Technologies into that. So it's the go-to place, and like I say, it's that constant live data and information that we can pump prime with that wraparound support. So yeah, so that's HOP, that's how we're using it.
Thank you, Naomi and Fiona. You've been very good with your time there and everything, the feedback. It's a good time for us to pause here. I know there have been a number of questions popping up in the chat, Nena. So I'm going to let you lead on this in terms of putting the questions out there. And also, if anyone else has further questions for Ant, Naomi and Fiona as well, feel free to ask them at this point, and we'll keep a log of them.
Great. Afternoon, everyone. Hi, Scottish one on the go now. Gonna have to deal with my accent. So I saw that we've got 2 questions that are data related from David and Johnny. So I'm going to hand this over to John to sort of give a brief answer, and then I'm sure he's going to see dragons someone else to also answer to.
Yeah, absolutely. So our first question was all around caveating the data. Now, I think it's a great question asked by David around statistical significance and the fact that obviously not all of the data is as robust as all other elements of the data. Now, we do have a variety of ways to add in caveats, and we look to our partners and our deliverers in terms of how that information is presented. We will aggregate all of the information that we can and present it in the best way. When we look at our professional products, we have lower limits where we won't present information if we don't have enough profiles to make it meaningful to the market. But I'm actually going to hand this question over to Ian McGarry from Greater Manchester Higher, because we actually did some pretty robust work around building caveats into the ecosystem for Greater Manchester Higher. And I'll be happy to show that later on, maybe to those who are concerned. You can drop into one of our drop-in sessions and we can go through those caveats in a deeper way. And then Johnny's question around the visualization. It's a great shout. I would love to speak to you more. We are still, as we mentioned, at the beginning of our rollouts. We're still collecting feedback. I was up until 11:30 last night trying to design new products and redesign the current products that we have out there to optimize the student usage, get them more engaging. So I would love to hear more thoughts around how you think some of the information could be better displayed and keep students engaged, but engaged with honest and real information.
Thanks, John. Ian, are you going to jump in there as well if you're about?
Yeah, I will cover a little bit of this in my presentation, but
Perfect.
I will tell everybody I came at this with a little bit of skepticism at first. I like Leo data. I like reading 1KG. I know where the politics are in this matter. And we know with any data set, there's going to be some limitations. So for example, self-employed people, non-degree subjects, it's excluding the self-employed. But this is the information that the applicants of tomorrow are asking for in terms of pay and graduate outcomes. And it's taken, one of my frustrations of being on the UniConnect program for the first 2 years was not having a product like this, because these were the questions that people were asking us. If I make these choices, what are the outcomes? What over a longitudinal period of time? Yes, I've got visions of ballerinas retraining to cyber as well, and we need to be very careful that this is a piece, the information that we've got here should be one of a bundle of pieces of information where people reach decisions. But there was a vacuum here before this product, and the visualization of it wins through. I just think it's important, although we have articulated the challenges of the climate, that it's important that we give the advice and guidance around this product as well.
Thanks, Ian. That's great. I know you've jumped in before your presentation, so I appreciate that. Nena, have there been any other questions that have come in the meantime?
Absolutely. There has been 2 more questions. One from Michaela. So she says, would be good to hear about data that can be collected on who uses TPI and how UniConnects are reporting on this to the OFS.
That's a good one. Naomi, do you want to come in on that with John? Yeah.
Like I say, well, we're only a week in. Our next monitoring return will be due in February. So I'll be using that as part of the monitoring return, Michaela, in terms of reporting on online activity. Also, it will feed into your inquiry. I can't remember what worksheet it is, but it'll give you inquiry, and it also give you'll be able to use it for hub activity as well. So anything around that. So for example, when Fiona talked about all the different like careers events, apprenticeship week, we'll put that in our hub reporting as well. So for me, there'll be at least 3 of those worksheets that we'll usually fill in that this will help with. I don't know if I've missed anything.
Yeah, I think same really. The important thing to remember, I'd say, Michaela, is that the platform is exceptionally agile. So our usage of the platform goes across 3 different levels of evaluation interaction intensities, which is horrendous, really, but a horrendous thing to say. But what I mean is, our level 1 interactions, young people can just go and play around with it. We'll get the postcode, we'll get what school they went to, and we can report that back through monitoring to a very low level. If it's something where we're going in and doing an hour's session, that would be sort of a level 2 interaction. So we do a just a post-event questionnaire, get them in MREP. But if it's part of the core program, which is a sustained 6-hour interaction, then that was what we would call a level 3, where we would do a pre activity evaluation and a post activity evaluation, and possibly something in the middle as well. So it depends how you use the platform. I think a little bit of thought needs to go into how you're going to get it out there. But once you've done that, as I say, it's very agile, and you can use it in different levels of intensity.
Yeah, I guess I'll hop in just from the internal perspective in terms of what data we can pull down and report on. So the privacy policy for students has been specifically amended. Many of you will know that TPI was originally founded to look at the pay sphere at a much more senior level than 16, 17-year-olds. So we've specifically amended our privacy policy to ensure that students understand what they're signing up for, as well as agree to share data with the provider who is funding the product, so that we can give direct feedback to those providers saying, hey, you're able to get in touch with me and interact with me. We will provide those emails and all of that stuff. So that's easy. We can point out the postcodes. We have postcode validation, so students have to put in their postcode. They can line it up to one of the targeted postcodes within the region, or if they're not a target student, then they select can't find my postcode, and that way we're able to split it out between target learners and non-target learners from the UniConnect perspective, which we think is really important. Then we pull down all of the engagement, page views, returning user percentages, numbers of signups, numbers of engagements, all of that stuff we're able to report on. We can look at the QR scans. We can tell you what types of devices, what types of geographic area those are being scanned on, how many signups they led to, all of that sort of stuff. So we're able to get a pretty robust view of engagement with the tools, which we think is really positive.
That's it. Thanks, John.
There
We
is-
also, sorry, just to jump in before you have another question, Nana. We've been asked about things as well, like ethnicity and disability, and we are currently talking with our legal team more about collecting that type of information from a GDPR perspective. We need to be careful, particularly with vulnerable young people. I'm aware that some UniConnects are working with suppliers that collect that type of information. We also don't collect that from a professional perspective yet. It's something that we are looking at in our product roadmap down the line, particularly ethnicity, and particularly because of the drive this year, thank God, in terms of Black Lives Matter. So there is that to come, just not yet. Nana, do you have another question quickly? And I think that would be our last before we kick off to the rest.
Indeed, from Jill, interested in any feedback on schools and colleges using it for benchmark for using within lessons to help develop careers in the curriculum. So I'm gonna bring that out to John.
I might be able to speak to that. I don't think that I haven't seen Michael Senior dial into the call yet, but Michael Senior is a head of 6th at an academy here in London, and so we gave him access to see what it was going to be like in terms of rolling out in a single school and what that might mean. He has essentially embedded it into the tutorial sessions. So where careers engagement is overloaded, or we know that many times the head of careers is also an economics teacher, and they also have kids of their own, and they're spread quite thin. So utilizing tutor groups, whether that's a once a week, 3 times a week, or whatever it is, depending on the school setup, they're building it in to those types of sessions as an initial exposure to talk students through it, say, hey, check out the video, because there's so many videos that we have now walking through the tools to get people actively engaged with it. And then they're re-exposing it in a careers lesson in a more robust curriculum. So it's starting small, starting slow, and then growing it into the more robust platform once they have the opportunity to spend that time with the students. I also know that many people, and Ian, I think GMH is doing this in quite a big way, are utilizing it in their one-on-ones. And I've heard that individual schools are looking to use one-on-one head of careers guidance in this tool in a big way, because it is one of those things that they can sit down, either spin the screen around or say, hey, log in on your phone and we'll talk through it together. So it's that direct engagement.
Great, thank you.
Hey.
Stay with us. We've had 3 exciting speakers, and we have a couple of more now, so not long more to go. We're at nearly 10 past the hour. We're here till 5. Stay tuned. Hope you had a cup of coffee at this stage. We're going to kick off now with Greater Manchester Higher.
Cool, thank you very much. Hi everybody. So I'm Ian McGarry. I'm the IAG manager at Greater Manchester Higher. First slide, please. So we are quite a big network. We have 16 partner institutions, 5 universities, 11 colleges, and around about 70% of 16-year-olds transition from a secondary school into a college or a different sixth form in Greater Manchester. So a couple of unique factors there. We target 130 schools very proactively, and the Outreach Hub, which you've heard about, which may be a model of where the University Connect goes forward. We're providing proactive support in a further 28 schools. Last 12 months, 36,000 learners engaged, of which just short of 19,000 were through sustained interventions. That's something with a monitoring and evaluation outcome. And we're doing okay. We're above our OFS benchmark. We've given 20% of all our target learners to hit. We're just under a quarter, just under 25% of that. So we've not had a bad year. Next slide, please. So why we partnered with the Pay Index? Well, I let this out of the bag a moment ago. First 2 years or so of existing, we were looking for something innovative to explain labour market information, to explain graduate pay outcomes, and to chip away at some of the stigmas around the student finance system. That people see the borrowing, they don't see the long-term benefit, the longer-term perspective. And like I say, if we could have arrived at this point 2 or 3 years ago, I think it would have been ideal, but we've got there eventually, and we found a product which, as I'll show you in a moment, is getting quite a warm reception. We've linked it to our progression framework, so every University Connect network has anchor points on where to do their work. So for year 10s and 11s, it's this we feel will help them research those different HE and careers options, how to get there, and be mindful of those long-term economic and personal benefits of HE. At post 16, what we call our consolidation phase, they arrive at those options which will form those UCAS choices or the apprenticeship applications. And it's a reliable source of information as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so we've recently had research done, and strangely enough, labour market information, graduate outcomes was something unequivocally what teachers want more of and want more solutions from us about. I've isolated one quote. We've mentioned the Gatsby benchmark a moment ago, but teachers are saying increasingly, and the surveys are coming out and saying this now, especially in the post-COVID situation, more students are saying, if I'm going to do a degree, what's at the end of it for me in terms of employability and in terms of getting a job? Beyond that, we got a tremendous buy-in from our staff. We've got quite a lot of critical friends in our staff network, but this universally has gone down very well. With the help of the guys at the Pay Index, we showcase this to over 70 plus teachers and stakeholders. And again, this is not flannel. There is so much appetite to embrace this. The slight barrier we've got is the contractual nature of the current funding till 2021. And we are trying as best we can to work with that and plan for the future as best we can as well. So what we've done, similar to colleagues in Humberside, we've only launched it in the last week or so. Similar, and again, we were introduced to this by Ant, who's a very reliable source and good beginners testimonials. But it gives us activities for both those in-school offerings or remote learning, where we can have our practitioners guiding people through the session, or we can throw this to teachers and give them resources to do them to do these activities in their own time. Our primary focus is one-to-one learner interviews. Very labour intensive, but for me, this is about the personalised and tailored IAG. The most successful IAG interventions is when it's meaningful and personalised to the learner, which of course this platform helps us to get there. We do a lot of sessions around curriculum connections. Again, massive appetite for the teachers to link our outreach work to the curriculum. We're increasingly making headway on industry insights and subject-specific sessions as well. And where we can, we use the Pay Index now to introduce this extra bit of information. And in my mind, it was missing information prior to these sessions. We're talking to our colleagues in the Combined Authority, seeing where we can either join up a little bit more, support each other in our own objectives. And I will give unequivocal praise for working with the guys at the Pay Index. It's not always been the case with other contracts and other organisations over the last 2 to 3 years, but these guys are incredibly strong in terms of their deadlines and the communications. When I first started talking to John, I had my anorak on, I knew about my Leo data, and hit him up with a load of caveats, which I would like to have seen on our website, and he's captured that perfectly. Yeah, we don't want it to be like one of those bank letters where you've got 5,000 different clauses and conditions, but it's important that the users of this platform know about the data and or basically make their own decisions in terms of how robust it is and where those limitations are. But for me, the balance here, whatever the caveats are, that the balance, this is going to be a force for good in terms of making sense of these crazy times and where the graduate outcomes of the futures might be. And we've got, as Ant said, we've got synergy with our other GMH channels. We also use the Pay Index. We also have other activities this can flow on, and it starts to link together. And it doesn't mean that we have IAG in different silos of information. And the final slide. There's always challenges. We know, as we've heard from colleagues elsewhere, the sell to schools in this climate is going to be very difficult, actually getting through the door. We also need to keep promoting the broader science behind course and career choices. This is part of the tactics with those. But as we know, and I've seen from some of the comments, arriving at a course, arriving at a career choice is broader than just the pay outcomes. And for me, the bigger challenge is around the sustainability. We know there is a consultation looming on the University Connects, but for me, this is about opportunities. We've got 29 different partnerships, and the potential for bringing everybody together to do something unified, something joined up, something holistic in the next phase is great. It's an opportunity to create a bit of a go-to on graduate outcomes. I mean, there's lots of IAG platforms out there. There's more platforms than Elton John's wardrobe out there at the moment. But sorry, that's my one joke of the session. But there's an opportunity to drive people to, if you like, the more robust, more tactile, the more learner-friendly platforms. And this, I think, from my experience, will be one of them. And as you're learning, there's an opportunity to refine, to improve as we go on, for people across the country to get together, to define what that best practice is and what that success looks like. It's the potential to be on that journey. And the final point, for me, it is incredibly important that we get to disadvantaged learners, that they are our priority audience. But in this climate, as has been alluded to, this reaches all learners across the board as well, and the carers and the parents who have a little thing to do in terms of the decisions that the learners make. So very excited. Like I say, I came at this with a little bit of skepticism at first. I'm certainly converted, and I'd be happy to, either in this session or beyond, to share my experiences with the people in the room. Thank you.
Thanks, Ian. That's great. We'll go straight away over to Future Quest. Gemma, if you're there and you can jump in now.
Yeah.
And then at the end, we'll head into the question session. Thanks a million, Gemma.
Brilliant. Thanks, Aoife. I trust you will keep me on track with time.
Of course.
Hi, I'm Gemma, the Outreach Hub Manager for Future Quest. We are the Uni Connect that is yet to launch, where we're looking at that for next week. So my presentation is really going to take you through, I suppose, some of the background of the way in which we work and why we've been attracted to working with the Pay Index. So if you could go to the next slide quickly for me, Aoife. Brilliant, thank you. So We're a partnership, as are all the other Uni Connect. We're maybe a bit of a smaller one than most that have spoken today. We're led by UWE Bristol, but we also have our other HEI partners that exist in the Bristol and South Gloss area. So University of Bristol is also one of our partners, South Gloucestershire and Stride College, and City of Bristol College as well. So we've got around 14 staff that work across those institutions, but similar to others, we connect with the West of England Combined Authority, so WECA, different charities and employers to deliver our activities. Okay, so next slide, please, Aoife. Okay, so here I've just listed the aims of the targeted delivery programme, which will be the same as the other Uni Connects that you've heard from. We work with 40 schools across Bristol and South Gloss. We've got the 2 colleges, which I mentioned earlier. Since we've started, we have worked with 6,200 eligible Uni Connect learners in our targeted postcode areas. And we've also worked with 4,300 not in that original targeting criteria. What I wanted to touch upon here, if you're sort of reading through the programme aims, is very much that, that last point there around a stronger evidence base around what works in HE outreach. So very much from the start of phase 2 of the Uni Connect programme, Future Quest took a bit of a different approach to how we were sort of developing our work, essentially. So we've really utilised the research of Neil Harrison and the lens of possible cells, which I think links really well to what Ant and Naomi were talking about earlier. So we've really used that research to develop our progression framework. So, you know, learner outcomes that map against students' educational journeys. And what we're really trying to do through that change in ethos of our programme is really moving against that language of raising aspirations, again, of which has been touched upon earlier. Our phase 1 evaluation and the NCOP survey really lent itself to that students have high aspirations for themselves. It's very much about how they find their way, how they map along their pathway and know the strategies to actually get there. So in terms of how we've used the lens of possible cells and our evaluation framework, there's a sort of central tenet to that, which is know what, so that real sort of knowledge of higher education and pathways, that know how, so the understanding of skill requirements for study and future life, and then finally moving into that know me, so that self-efficacy and that reflection on development. And that's one of the reasons that we felt the pay index really supported how we evaluate, but also how we try and structure our activities. So can I ask you to move on for me, Aoife, please? Thank you. So here I've just listed the principles that Future Quest are working to under our outreach hub. So again, looking at a sustainable model of collaboration that helps us to develop shared ways of working. So within the outreach hub, we've obviously got the 4 HEIs, which I commented on earlier. We've got third sector organisations, public sector organisations, and we're also trying to link with other outreach programmes as well. So as well as having a shared way of working, what we are trying to build importance of in the outreach hub is that knowledge of considering socioeconomic and geographical factors that affect progression to HE. So it's not just experiences, it's not just skills, it's not just coming to a university and suddenly that's what you want to study. It's really focusing on those structural barriers that limit potential. So again, this is one of the real reasons we were drawn to the pay index, because it's so clear. There's such clear examples and information regarding pay and geographical factors, and also looking at that cost of living analysis for different cities as well. Bristol is a very expensive city to actually live in, So it's quite interesting to work with some of our young people on moving to other cities and what the pay comparison is for that. One of the things that really attracted me as well was the gender pay gap, and having something that can really support our conversations with generally young women in this field. But Aoife and I spoke quite at the beginning of us buying the tool, particularly around the ethnicity pay gap, and it's really good to hear that that's still being explored. And that really lends itself well to some of our peer mentoring and BAME mentoring programs. Also, just along the bottom there, you'll see some of the programs and projects that the Outreach Hub is working to. So as well as signposting information through the regional hub, we are also building our own campaigns or seeking and being successful with other funding models as well. So the first there, I Am First Gen, is a campaign that we have been developing, really supporting first in family who are coming to HE, looking at that sharing of stories, relatable role models, but really going further than that, not just sharing the stories, but how can we work with employers in industry who are first gen themselves to actually provide tangible work experience options, mentoring, if it's interview practice, really making some sort of proper activities take place between first gen professionals and school learners. We've also just been successful with funding through Health Education England to run a access to medicine and professions programme. So the pay index will really help us there with specific subject related pathways and jobs. And also another regional network that's running out of UE, DETI, that's really focused on digital engineering and technology. So that's also coming under the Outreach Hub, and also working with all of the same schools. So we've got a real opportunity there to use the pay index in different ways. Lastly, just to focus on impact evaluation, and that was one of the things that really drew me to the pay index, and that we can see what young people have used the tool and use that to match to HEAT to look at the engagement that we have. Okay, brilliant. So just quickly, we've bought the university report, and we have a 1-year license currently. Again, because of our because we know we have funding up until July 2021, but hopefully that will extend. To go back to my previous point around using the lens of possible selves as really the ethos of the outreach work that we're developing. I was part of the creative group that was put together by Higher Horizons. So very much worked with Richard from Higher Horizons and Fiona from HOP on adding sort of our thoughts towards the Future Selves activities that Richard had developed. And that was a really, really positive experience. It really lent itself well to the way in which we like to work. Working in that collaborative way, I'd say, is the first time for me anyway that we've worked in such a productive way with other Uni Connects, and having that Future Selves activity, we've really been able to adapt it to our regional area. So again, going back to digital engineering, aeronautical in Bristol, digital and creative, we've really been able to adapt that to work for us. What we've also done is adapt some of the activities that we sort of put together really quickly in terms of the first national lockdown. So we put together self-directed online activities for young people, and we further adapted those now to sit with our pay index tool. So really looking at options and careers. So using case studies essentially of different people and their different interests, and allowing young people to use the pay index to answer some questions and think of some potential pathways for those individuals in those case studies. And also a budgeting activity that we've run really well face-to-face with young people. and now we're looking to adapt that as well to sit on the Pay Index site. If you could go to the last slide for me, Aoife, thank you. So like I said, we're yet to launch, but we're almost there. So next Monday we should be good to go. So exciting times with that. My comms team have already set up a comms strategy for how we're going to make the Pay Index known to our schools and teachers. Initially, what we're going to do is go via linked teacher emails. Each of my project coordinators has a caseload of schools that they work with and really strong relationships with those linked teachers. So that's going to be an initial email describing what the tool is and the different ways in which we can work with them. Termly newsletter will come next, so that's actually shifted to January. I think that's going to be a more positive time potentially to be contacting our teachers with an offer of training for how they can use the tool themselves, but also how we can include it with the current Future Quest sessions that we deliver to schools. At the moment, we're very much looking at live online delivery using tools such as Blackboard Collaborate or any of the platforms that schools themselves are using. But hopefully we can build to a point where we will be able to deliver it face-to-face also. Then following from the newsletter, we run a schools and colleges advisory group. So we've really tried to make a push on having teacher voice enter into the development of our work, and we see that developing into bringing in young people to really help us with learner voice. So that gives us an opportunity to really put the tool in front of teachers to follow up from the newsletter that we would have sent at the beginning of the year. And then finally, we'll be looking to include it in our program, so it will become a very much a part of any of the tools we or activities we run around financial education, but very much how we build it into our Health Education England projects, DETI projects, and any other projects that we seek to deliver throughout the rest of the year. Just quickly, I haven't really mentioned feedback because we haven't put it out to our schools yet, but in terms of our Outreach Hub Advisory Board, the feedback has been very positive, very much everyone enjoying the different approach to ways of thinking about pathways and future options. And there was some comment on how freelancers would be represented, particularly we work with a lot of arts organisations and how that would be represented. And John has been great at sort of coming back to me with those queries. But yeah, as soon as we launch it to schools, hopefully we'll have more feedback to share with the team. And that's it.
Thanks,
from me.
Gemma. You're very good. Thank you for everyone with timing. I can't believe how well we've done with all of the speakers so far. Michael from Kingsbury, we have your slide up next, if that's okay, just to run through your quick trial of the Pay Index. Yeah, sure. Can I just check that you can hear me? Can hear you fine, yeah. Great. So thanks for having me on. I'm an assistant head and director of sixth, it says there. We've got about 420 students in the sixth one, about 2,100 in the school. We're in Brent, so we've got a really mixed clientele of students. You've got some that are many are actually highly aspirational, and I mean, I'm lucky in the sense that I work in a centre that has got amazing progression and results, despite having a sort of very it's a very mixed clientele of students, but they're incredibly motivated. I think the challenge for us has been the fact that we need to do more on financial education, and students have been asking us for this. And I think what we've been doing is a bit lackluster. It's not connected with them very much. It's been about uni budgeting, and because 90% go off to uni. So we don't need to motivate them to go off to uni. We probably need to motivate more of them to consider apprenticeships. And I did a poll today of 20 students. I took over a form, and about 6 of them out of 20 were considering apprenticeships. And I think what happens is that ebbs off, and that number just gets smaller and smaller as the sort of journey through the sixth one goes on. And
I think some of them face is barriers at home. And so what we're trying to do is, we liked the pay index because it gave the students ammunition to go home and say to parents, have a look at this. Students that are taking apprenticeships are doing really, really well. And pay looks really good. And so I think it's given them a bit more ammunition. And even if the parents are with them, I think it's given the students that want to do apprenticeships a bit more confidence that it's the right path for them. Even if they've got parents behind them, I think it just makes them feel more secure. So I think they've really enjoyed seeing that. Some of them are kind of get a bit straitjacketed in their own thinking, but also coming from home as they're sort of particular channeled into law, accounting, medicine, very common sort of destinations. And they want to break out of those. And I think what this has done is it's made them realize that actually quite a few jobs out there that have come from diverse backgrounds in terms of degrees have got good salaries, and actually not that dissimilar from the ones that their parents are wanting them to go into. So it's sort of broadened out their choice. So we've liked the fact that it's empowered them to sort of go with their choices, really. I think the other thing is labour market information isn't something that we've delivered on very meaningfully. And I think that yes, okay, the data might have some small data sets in certain instances, but what it's doing is it's given the students a real sense of, they're not going to be earning. Some of them got sort of unrealistic expectations of how much they're going to be earning in 2 to 3 years' time. They think they're going to be earning more than the head teacher within 3 years. And I think it's made them sort of realize just what a sort of steady pace it is, rather than this kind of stratospheric rise into the upper echelons of senior executives. So I think that's sort of given them a bit more realistic kind of view of the labour market. We liked it because it was so flexible to introduce, because you can't always book a computer room. So with this, they could just get their phones out, and actually they look so good on their phones. So they just whip out their phones and they could engage with the pay index straight away. I didn't need to create a kind of rotation inside PC rooms, which was just complicated. And the other thing we liked is that it wasn't bound, because it's early days for us in terms of using it, but the use of it wasn't bound by just the tutorial period. It just allowed them to flow over. They had the link, they had the password, they could get on and they could use it in their own time. So I saw them in the study room sort of talking about it and sort of on their phones and sort of flicking through. And that aspect of where they will dip in and out over the journey through the sixth form when it kind of suits them is an aspect I really liked. And the other thing I think is I can see how we can use it in more extended workshops. In the workshop, we can, if we want to do something on financial education, we can kind of start with the pay index, then to get sort of into, what's the pay for this? What if you go there? What about cost of living? What about repaying student loan? Then move into some financial education and then move back to that. And I think what I hadn't realized was just how much was in the pay index. So I know that we've got to learn a little bit more about it to get more out of it. But I can see how we will blend the pay index into some of the activities that we do on financial education and careers, and it will ground it, I think, a lot more in realism. So I think overall, I've really liked the product. Actually, it's been really good, and I think the students have probably cottoned on to it more quickly than the tutors. It's easy for the tutors. So you just give the students a link and you play the video, and the students are kind of on their phones within a nanosecond. There weren't any barriers really to be able to setting this up. And I think that's one of in terms of a school taking this on, as few barriers as possible is really attractive. And this was just simply, here's the email, students, here's the link, here's the password, let's get going. That was really attractive to us. So I think that's where we are with it at the moment. So I think for us it was about a lot about empowering students' choices so they could vary what it is that they want to do, as well as a lot more on some realistic finance education. That's what drew us to this.
Thank you, Michael. That's great. Yeah, no, it's really interesting to get school feedback, you know, directly, as well as the Uni Connect feedback. And it takes us straight into our next questions and answers session. So this is going to be just before we head into the roadmap for what's coming up next. Nena, do we have any extra questions from the audience?
Yes, indeed we do. We have got a question from Kieran that is for Ian. How does your program link to or provide access to guidance from professional career advisors via the one-to-one learner interviews? And that's for Ian at GMH.
Yeah, I'll do a brief answer because I've given Kieran a for the long answer after this session. We train our practitioners up to an IAG qualification. It stops short of career guidance. We gave 1,000 one-to-one interviews in our last full calendar year, which shows the potential again in the pay index. But we've always respected the space of careers guidance professionals to do the affiliated careers guidance because our staff are not careers guidance qualified. It's a complementary activity that we do through negotiation with the school, and it works quite well.
Awesome.
Great, thanks Ian, and thanks Kieran for the question. Any other questions?
Yes, we've got one more from Claire, and it's for John. Is the data in the model beginning to reflect any labour market changes due to COVID-19?
So as of right now, the product that we are delivering to students has yet to integrate any robust reflection of COVID-19 implications. That is because we are kind of beholden on releases from these data sets that we utilize. Some of our professional tools are seeing minor dips in data due to COVID. And as we continue to develop the products, we are going to be looking at integrating more and more of our proprietary professional data into the student reports to give a little bit more guidance around actual implications that are happening in real time as opposed to with a bit of a lag. I expect that we'll see more robust COVID implications built in probably in the next 3 to 6 months.
Thanks, John. Nena, do we have any other questions?
No, that's it for now. Oh, no, there is one just come in from Johnny. Is there a digital poverty concern here? Anyone got any ideas about ensuring access for young people without smartphones, etc.?
I can answer this straight away. In terms of the original conversations with Uni Connects when we were developing this out, was that anyone who had concerns like that, particularly when they were at home, they were no longer in school or college, would be that we could print off the reports, leave them on the wall almost for the students to collect. You know, you have to get down to that granular level of detail. It's a way actually of Uni Connects flagging those with digital poverty concerns to ensure that they are set up appropriately in terms of having access to something within the classroom from an employability session, or if they want to use it at home, that's flagged with the schools as well, to ensure that the free iPads that were announced by the government that were slowly sent out and taken up in all the different regions, that they would get access to some sort of tool that they could use. In practice, though, for all of our speakers, has this been coming up yet? Have people been flagging it? Have we seen anything out there with the students? If anyone would like to jump in on that.
Yeah, it's early days for us, but where schools flag a digital poverty concern, we have got a cash award to give them printing costs and alternative means to getting at this information via yourselves.
Awesome.
That's great, because it's a tool for all, and it's really good to flag that one, Johnny. We do not want tech to be a barrier to these types of reports. I oftentimes, when I was working with young offenders, there would be one phone in the house, and it would be usually with the parent. So, you know, even having access to that for them, or even a quiet space at home, that was limited in certain cases. Does anyone have anything else? Would they like to jump in on that? Ant, I saw you were unmuted there.
No, I was just saying that, you know, clearly in the communities that we work, the lack of technology and particularly access to the internet actually is our biggest concern. However, I don't think Johnny's necessarily alluding to this fact. But just one point or two is having said that, you know, that clearly should not stop us investing in platforms like the Pay Index, because the vast majority of our young people are back in schools now, and clearly the majority of young people, the vast majority of young people that we're working with at the moment, have access to technology within the school environment. But very similarly to Ian and GMH, we have print bursaries of up to £300 for this sort of thing.
Great, thank you. So Nena, is there any other questions? Because I'm just conscious we need to move into the product roadmap. So let's answer one last one.
There's one last question from AC Homden. What level are the SIC and SOC codes used for the data?
John, do you want to come in on that?
Yeah.
Sorry, I was speaking, but I was on mute.
Yeah.
It was going to happen to someone eventually on this call, right?
Exactly. Classic.
I need to go back to my data team and double check is the real answer. So I will check into that. I know that we have it in all of the data sets. It's logged. I just, off the top of my head, do not remember because it is such a specific question. I haven't been asked it in months. So let me go back and check into it, and I will shoot an email out to answer.
Perfect. Great. Well, look, thank you for the questions. Let's go straight into the roadmap, what's ahead. It's a really exciting time. I'm really pumped you've all stayed to this time with us. You know, I think 2 hours can be quite a long time as well. So thank you for your attention to date. We've 15 minutes to go, and John's going to jump straight in and tackle this, the roadmap.